Hi, this is BritSimon. I want to talk to you today about credit scores and what a big impact that can have on your life, and how to manage your money responsibly and your credit responsibly so that your credit score is as good as it can be. And I'll explain why that is important as well. Okay, let's get into that. Okay, so a credit score, what does that mean? Well, essentially there's a couple of credit bureaus, a couple of companies that monitor your credit situation at any given time. Anybody that, any organization that provides credit to you, such as a car loan or a mortgage or a credit card, report your activity to these credit monitoring companies every month. So as you make your payments on your car, the credit bureau will be informed how much money you just paid, what your remaining balance is, etc. And over time they build up a picture of how you're handling your money and your credit. And so they then use that score to inform other lenders whether you will be a likely candidate to handle your money for the next loan that you want to take, or for the next credit card. So so it becomes an important factor in your life, and your life in the USA, and you need to understand it, because there's very few things you can do over here in the USA without somehow reflecting on your credit score, without either checking your credit score or adding to your credit score. And so the major life decisions that you'll want to make certainly will be affected by this, like buying a home. The cost of obtaining a mortgage can be higher if your credit score is lower. So you'll want to get into a position where your credit score is pretty good when you're leading up to buying a home. Your ability to get credit, perhaps buy a car at lower interest rates, will be affected by this. So essentially a higher credit score, a score that says you're a good borrower, means you can borrow money for less money. It actually saves you money. And many of you will be coming from countries where having credit is not the norm, and perhaps frowned upon, etc. But it's a factor of everyday life here in the USA. It's easy to pay for things with a credit card, sometimes easier than cash. You can use debit cards, but they don't provide the same protections as a credit card. And so day by day, you'll find that it's easier to behave in the way that Americans behave, to an extent. So I don't want you to come with the mindset of a typical American that gets into debt. There's a statistic that the average American is $38,000 in debt, which is horrific, really. Those people are drowning in a sea of debt, often unable to pay their debts. And being in debt can bring great stress and sadness to family life. It can cause all sorts of complications, and it usually costs you much more money to be in debt than just to pay for things in the first place. So as you live in America, it's important, as I said earlier, to manage your money responsibly, and also manage your credit responsibly. And I want you to have a mindset, think like an immigrant coming to the country for the first time. Don't copy the Joneses because they happen to be buying a new fancy car or whatever. Don't necessarily copy those examples. Get yourself into a strong position financially, and it will pay you off immensely. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my credit scores and use a website called Credit Karma. Credit Karma is a free website, anyone can join. To join, you input some of your details, you give them your social security number and a little bit of information about your age, and they'll take some information from you in order to confirm that it's you, right? This is when you're living in the States, by the way. You're not going to be able to do this until you live in the States. Now, you'll then be able to see your credit score in the same way that other lenders can see your credit score. And that's useful to you because you can see how you'll be judged before you actually go to apply for a credit card or something. So, so what I'd like to do is explain, how you can use a site like that. And there are other sites that do a similar thing, but Credit Karma is kind of a good one. I do recommend it. It's a good site. It's free. It doesn't cost anything, and they're trying to inform you of other offers for credit cards and that sort of thing that would suit your profile. But you don't have to take up those offers. So you can use the site to your advantage to really keep track of where you stand. And I would say in the first year or two of you coming to the States, it's essential for you to keep in touch with your credit score month by month, and as you're building your credit score, you want to try and do the things that will increase your credit score as quickly as possible. Okay, so I'll show you that in one moment. So the other aspect that I want to talk about is how you get a credit score in the first place. How do you start? Well, like anything, sometimes the first step is the hardest step. When you apply for credit in the USA, they'll check your credit score held by one of these bureaus, these credit checking bureaus. And initially, you'll be what's known as a ghost. You'll be transparent. You won't be able to be seen by any of the credit agencies. So you may have to do some things to start getting registered. One of the simplest things you can do is by taking a secured credit card. A secured credit card is where you give a credit card company some money and you are allowed to use your credit card on a revolving credit basis month to month, but within the amount of money you've given them. So in other words, you give them $500, let's say, or $1,000, and you'll receive a credit card in your name with a revolving credit line, but only up to a credit line of the same amount that you gave them. In other words, you're borrowing your money back. It's secured for them, so they have the $1,000. Let's say you've put $1,000 on, they have that $1,000, and they're not going to let you borrow more than that $1,000. So it's secured from their point of view, but it's a revolving credit card and behaves the same way as a true credit card. And so that's useful because as long as you get the right type of secure credit card, it's reported to the credit agencies, and that starts to build your credit history. There are other ways that you can build your credit history. You can try and get a car loan, and that's often quite a good way to get off to a start. You can go to a bank, you can and see if you can get a car loan from a decent bank and a high street bank. And once they've agreed to give you a car loan, then you can purchase a car with that and pay that finance back. But you need to keep these things small to start with. You need to not sort of get yourself into a large amount of debt. You need to make your payments very manageable. And make sure that you can get by. You certainly don't want to make a mistake in the early months and years that you're over here. So a car loan might be possible, and there may be other credit cards which are somewhat easier to get initially. But generally speaking, you need to have something like the secure credit card is a good way to go. If, by the way, you're from Australia, and perhaps some other places in the world, there is you may have an Amex, and there's a global account structure with Amex where they will transfer your account to the USA, and instantly you'll have a credit card in the USA based on your credit activity or your credit rating back in your home country. That's very useful. It's a very quick way to get a real proper credit card without it being a secured credit card, and that will very quickly build up a very good credit rating as long as you use it responsibly. Okay, so that's a couple of things on how to start getting a credit rating. Now let's talk about how you build your credit rating from an initial point, and what are the things that you've got to do to increase your credit score to the best credit score possible. Let's talk about that now. I'll show you my Credit Karma account, and let me just say, you may see some numbers in my credit card account about the outstanding balances or whatever, or my purchases in my credit profile. They're going to seem alarming to you because the place where I live in the USA is probably one of the most expensive places to live. So my income is higher than it would be normal in other parts of the country. My expenses are higher. I'm financially very secure, and so I'm comfortable with what I spend. Actually, I pay off my credit card bill every month, and this is something I'm going to tell you to do. I pay off my credit card bill every single month, right down to zero. I never carry a balance. I never pay interest on my credit cards. And so, I might spend $4,000 or $5,000 in an average month on my credit cards, but I can pay that money, and I pay that money at the end of the month. Every whatever the bill comes in, I just pay it. It's paid automatically. Actually, I've just got it set to automatically pay the full balance. So in other parts of the country, these numbers are not going to be normal. It's not going to be normal in other parts of the country to spend $5,000 a month, let's say. So don't let the numbers alarm you. Your numbers will be your numbers, but my monthly outgoings are probably higher than in most parts of the country. Okay, so let's have a look at my Credit Karma account, and it'll be quite interesting for you, I'm sure. All right. Okay, so I've logged into my Credit Karma account, and generally speaking, I can show you much of this without it having my personal information. So, it should be pretty innocuous. But first of all, when you come into Credit Karma, you're going to see your scores for the two main credit bureaus that there are in the States. There are more bureaus than this in the States, but these are the two main ones, so Equifax and TransUnion. I used to live in the UK. I know both of these companies were operating in the UK. And when I came over to the States, I actually printed out all of my credit information from the UK, but that actually didn't do me any good. It didn't help me at all with establishing credit. My credit history, just needed time to build. And now, well, they say I'm an excellent credit rating, but I've been here 5 or 6 years. So my score has built from probably a starting point at around about 680, maybe 700 or so, and now it's it was probably in that sort of range, around about 700 to start with. So initially you'll get a standard credit rating. Let's say it starts off at 700. If you do some silly things, it'll go down. I've known people have credit ratings in the 500s and the 600s, and people in that situation where they've got such a low credit rating, they'll struggle to get good credit cards or good mortgage offers, and what will happen is that they will be offered, if they're offered anything at all for a mortgage approval, for example, they'll be offered a higher rate of interest than I would be paying because my credit history is good. So that's the point of a credit history, or that's the point of it from your perspective. You want to get the rating up as much as you can so that your cost of borrowing is as low as possible. Okay, so in this screen, what are we seeing? So there's an offer over here for a credit card, and says I've got excellent approval odds of getting that credit card. So in this particular case,
This is a rewards credit card. It pays cash back. I'll actually do a video on credit cards. I get quite a significant amount of money every year back on my credit cards, and I prefer it that way. I don't pay any interest at all on my credit cards. I don't pay any fees for my credit cards. I pay no annual fee, just like this credit card. And this particular credit card is coming with a cashback of between 1 and 3% and a welcome bonus of $150. So they're actually going to give you a bonus for signing up with the credit card company, and they're going to give you cash back every time you spend money. So that's a fairly decent offer there. But in order to get that offer, it's because I've got good credit. So let's see. There's a sort of a dashboard here with the credit numbers. I can click on either one of these, and it'll show me a sort of a mini history. Let's do that. So my number in December was at 759. It's gone up significantly since then. I'm not quite sure why. It actually tells you what's changed. Let's see. I'll click and see what's changed. So it went up in February. I last checked it in December. So here are the reasons why. The balance on my credit cards decreased. This is an auto lease for one of the cars, and that decreased. It decreased because we've made regular payments. There's nothing special about that. We're obviously going to be decreasing. My mortgage balance decreased. Again, nothing special about that. I'm just paying my mortgage. So it decreased by $7,000. Again, so $7,000 in 2 months might seem striking to you, but I'm in an area where average property prices around about $1 million. $2 million houses are not unusual, so mortgages are fairly large here. And although I've got a number of investment properties around the world, I do have a mortgage on my own personal home. Then this credit card here increased by a little bit of money. And then it talks about how many on-time payments there have been. Right, so a number of on-time payments. You see everything is green there, so that's a good thing. So again, we look at my mortgage payments. So I've got 100% of my payments have been on time. Actually, it's between October and February. 4 out of 4 payments are on time. Didn't have a balance to pay off. So that all makes sense, right? So that's why my score has increased since the last time I checked it, I guess. So 759 would have been in the good range, I suppose, and 771 is in the excellent range. I'm not watching this on a sort of. There are some people that really watch their credit scores very carefully and do everything they can by the book to increase their credit scores and almost treat it like a game. I don't do that. I haven't done that for quite some time, but I'm responsible with my money, and that just results in a reasonable credit rating. So let's look at the credit, and this is probably one of the main things I wanted to show you here. This is the credit factors that affect the credit. So on this page, it shows me my credit rating. Then there's a hint about paying down this particular credit card. The reported balance is $2,385. That credit card, like my other main credit card, will just be paid down automatically down to zero. I don't, as I mentioned earlier, I don't carry any balance at all on my credit cards. I don't like paying interest when I've got money in the bank. Why would I do that? Why would I pay money to borrow when the bank aren't even giving me money for the money I've got in the bank, if you see what I mean? So I just automatically pay off my credit cards every single month, and that does help me with my credit. Standing, my credit rating. But here are the main points. So you can see the things that they consider towards the factors they consider towards your credit rating. And they say which of these factors have a high or a low impact. So The payment history has a high impact. The credit card use or the outstanding balance as a percentage of your overall available balance has a high impact. Derogatory marks has a high impact. So those first three things are the most important things that you need to look at. So derogatory marks would be things like if I hadn't paid something, or if I've got if I've got a collection or a tax lien, civil judgment, anything like that. I've never had anything like that. So that would be a derogatory mark. The payment history is important. It's important you pay your bill every single month on time. And I'm absolutely religious about that. As I say, whenever I open a credit card, the first thing I do is I log on to their website or whatever, and I find the option to pay off the credit amount every month down to zero automatically. So I never spend more on my credit cards than I know I can pay at the end of the month. And I always keep an amount of money in my bank account that would pay all of my bills for at least 6 months or so. Even if I stopped having income, I maintain that. Now I'm a 50-something, year old guy. I'm, financially established. It's not going to be as easy for a 20 or a 30-year-old person or a young family to get themselves into that position where they can maintain 6 months of expenses in the account. But that is what I'm going to recommend to you, that you do those things, that you work towards those things, which might mean some hard work, and it might mean that you say no to yourself when you want to buy that new fancy phone, that maybe you don't buy that new fancy phone, you put it off, you buy a cheaper phone, or you make do for a little while, or you get an additional job so that you can save up money for the things that you want. But but if you go through life buying the things that you want rather than the things you need, then when it comes time to actually have some money on hand, you won't have any money on hand because you keep buying what you want every single month, and you keep spending all of your money. So I think Americans live that way. They buy what they want, right? And in general, there are a lot of Americans, I would say about 75% of Americans, that have negative net worth. They're worth less than they owe, right? They've got assets or some, maybe they've got some assets, but those assets are not even worth as much as they owe. So they're in a negative net worth. I personally wouldn't live like that. And if you're coming here to start a new life, why on earth would you get yourself into that sort of mess, right? This is emigration to America is like a rebirth. You can start again. It doesn't matter what you did in your old country. You can come here with a different mindset, and a mindset that says, I'm going to work very hard. I'm going to save some of my money every month before I decide how much I've got to spend. I'm going to take money out for savings. I'm going to save money up, and I'm going to make sure that I don't get into financial trouble. Right? If you come here with that sort of mindset, you'll do well. Okay, so back to my credit report here. Let's have a look at the details here. One of the things it said there was the number of late payments. So I've got 100% on-time payment history. I'll show you some of that in more detail on some of the credit cards actually. This is my. So these are still the 6 tabs that we were just looking at. So here are the 6 tabs, right? I talked about the first 3. Let me just quickly go through the bottom 3. The credit age is the average age of the credit card. So I only have 3 years and 2 years, 3 years and 2 months of credit age. It would be better for me if my credit age were longer. But I think what I did, I probably made a mistake. I think I closed the account of the very first credit card I had, which would have been 5-something years old. So that by closing those early cards, I've probably made the average age, my credit age, lower than it really is. So I'm sure that's something that if I was really watching this credit score and really wanted the best credit score, I would have played that game a little bit better. So my credit history age is only 3 years and 2 months, right? Total accounts. sorry, credit age, by the way, has a medium impact to your credit score. So that's a fairly important thing. Total number of accounts, it has a low impact. I've got 10 open and closed accounts, and that's individual credit card company accounts or auto loans or things like that. Mortgage is also one of those accounts. And then hard inquiries. Every time you ask for credit, there's an inquiry logged against your credit history. So if I'm every month asking for credit, the credit card companies will say, "Oh well, he looks like he's desperate. He keeps wanting to borrow money." Right? So a few months ago, we bought a new car. We decided to lease that car because my wife's business, it makes sense from a tax point of view to lease a car if you've got your own business. That's the only time, by the way, I would ever suggest leasing a car. Don't, for goodness sake, don't lease a car. It's the most ridiculous waste of money you could ever imagine. The only way it makes sense is if you have your own business where you can write off the monthly cost as an expense, because effectively you're getting a tax benefit on that depreciation. But if you lease a car, you're buying somebody else's problem. You're buying the car company's depreciating asset. So cars are a horrible investment. They're not an investment at all. They're a liability. And I don't recommend people buy cars on leases. I did, as I say, for a specific reason. But other than that, don't do it. So a few months ago, I had to go through a credit rating process, and I think both of those scores were from two different agencies or two different requests because we were close to buying one car and then decided on the opposite car. So I think we actually went through a credit checking process twice because of that. May have been that actually, maybe I didn't, I'm not sure. But anyway, I've had two hard inquiries. So those inquiries stay on your record for 2 years. And so I've apparently asked for credit 2 times in the last 2 years. Over time, those will drop off my credit history, right? So that's how that will work. But anyway, that has a relatively low impact. Total accounts has a low impact and medium impact for credit age. The high impact ones are the first three ones here. So again, let's go back into the details. We'll go to the details tab. So this is the payment history, the number of payments I've made, and there's quite good information here. It says what to know. A single missed payment is easy to recover from, but a 90-day missed payment is more damaging and could disqualify you from certain loans. And after 90 days, missed payments can become charge-offs and sent to a collection agency. You certainly want to avoid that. So you don't want to hurt your credit score like this. And then there's an explanation about how late payments affect your credit score. So that's payment history. As I say, I always pay my credit cards, my mortgage, everything else is paid on time without fail. My credit card use, I'm using $5,300 worth of my $46,000 worth of available credit. What does that mean? Does that mean I'm in trouble? No. So I've got credit cards which would allow me to spend up to $46,000, and I've got an outstanding balance as of today of $5,300. These numbers are usually quite well up to date. It's amazing how much information is available about me or about you or anyone else. They know exactly what your credit card balance is at any given point. And so that probably is a very realistic number of what I owe on credit cards. And we can look at, I'll show you this, I've got nothing to hide. So we've got this Citi Cards. That Citi Cards one is a Costco card. And I've got a 48% utilization. So I'm using $2,300 worth of credit out of the 5,000 balance, 5,000 available credit. So that's fairly high, and that's why earlier it was recommending to pay that balance down. Then on my other main credit card, I use these two credit cards mostly for all of my bills. I just pay everything through the credit cards. So this one's got a credit limit of $16,500 and I've got a $2,800 balance. So I'm using 17%. Then as I go down the list, I've got a Discover card here. These are all giving me points. Discover card gives me some cash back. This card here is an Amazon card, gives me cash back. And that Costco card gives me money at Costco. This Discover card has an available credit limit of 7,000. I've got a balance of 41. That's the same number just about every month. I've got one particular bill that is automatically paid through that credit card. I never even think about it, and my bill on Discover is paid every single month automatically. Then I have an Old Navy card. This is a store card. I got that simply because my wife shops at several stores, Gap and Old Navy, and you can get discounts on the clothes, etc. there if you've got their store card. So I rarely ever use it, but she does occasionally. And again, it's just set to automatically pay off. Wells Fargo, I bank with Wells Fargo, and I've got a credit card with them. I don't even know where that credit card is. I don't use it at all, so it's not surprising to me that I've got a zero balance on there. I have a Lowe's account. Again, same sort of deal. I bought some things in Lowe's. They give you a discount, I think 5% discount, or perhaps I got even more than that. I was redoing some wood flooring in my home. I knew I was going to be spending $4,000 or $5,000, and so I signed up for their card to get a discount. Same thing here on Home Depot. That's another home improvement store. Again, so I got another balance, another few thousand available credit there. So if you total all of those up, that's $47,000 of available credit, and about $5,300 of money spent on those credit cards, and they'll just be paid automatically at the end of the month. If I just expand one of these, you can see in terms when they talk about the payment history, 100% payments. So these are the years I've had the credit card: July, February, March, January, February, March, etc. And a tick is every single month I've made the payment on time, and without fail. That's always like that. Times I've been late, never. Worst payment status, current. Yeah, I mean, I've just never, I've never not paid that. Same thing with any of these credit cards, they're all the same. I've never not paid a credit card bill. Just it would be madness to do that. So I just pay every single month, without fail. So that's, hopefully that's interesting to you. I can do the same thing on any of these and show you the history. Well, this one doesn't have a history. Oh, yes, it does. I'm sorry. So it has a history going back to 2016 again, 100% payment record. So as you can see, I've been very careful. I'm not mad about getting the highest credit score, but I am just very concerned to always make sure I pay off my credit card bill right down to zero every single month, because I don't want credit card debt. Now, the only time I would change that is if I had a particular purchase to make. Let's say I had some large purchase to make, and it in some way was advantageous to me to buy it. Let's say I was buying a $10,000 item, a new motorbike or something. It might pay me to pay for that vehicle or that motorbike with a credit card, because I'll get the money back from the credit card company. I'll get some cash back on that. But I might say, okay, I'll put that expensive item over 2 or 3 months. So I might say, okay, I won't pay the whole balance, this at the end of this month, and I'll put that item over 2 or 3 months in this one case. But I would never do more than that. And if you're running credit cards and you're only paying the minimum balance, because that's how they work, they send you a bill for $2,000, let's say, you spent $2,000 in the month, you can pay as little as 5% of that amount. So you could pay as little as $100, and then the $1,900 they'd charge you interest on, and it will transfer to your next bill. Well, if you do that, you're digging a big hole for yourself every single month. You're getting deeper and deeper into debt as you allow that money to transfer over to the next month. Number one, you're paying interest on the money you've borrowed, and number two, how do you pay off that $1,900 with the $2,000 you've spent next month? You're going to start to get into trouble. So my advice to all of you is only spend on a credit card what you're absolutely certain you can pay at the end of that month, unless it's a very exceptional purchase which you've planned, which you've talked to your husband or wife about, which you know what you're doing, and you've decided you're going to put this one big purchase over a 2 or 3 month period. But if you can't pay for that purchase in a 2 or 3 month period, I would say either don't buy it, whatever it is, don't buy that thing, number one, or look for some other way to finance that purchase. It shouldn't be necessarily on a credit card, because credit cards charge around about 20%, 15 to 25% is the average range. So let's say 20% is the interest rate. That's a lot of interest to be paying. So you certainly don't want to just buy something like a car and then pay that over 3 years, right, on a credit card. That would be absolute madness, because you would be paying a lot of interest, and there's better ways to do that. So don't do that. So that's my credit card use. Derogatory marks, as I mentioned earlier, I've never had a collection or any sort of public record thing. But if you had a bankruptcy, a civil judgment, etc., this is where it would appear, and it has a high impact to your credit score. Credit age. As we go through here and I get an older credit age, my credit score will actually go up. At the moment, it's considered very young. It's in this sort of 2 to 4 years, and it's red. As it gets to 5 to 6 years and 7 to 8 years, it'll be better, and it will help my credit score go up. Same thing here on credit on accounts. I don't quite have enough accounts to have a really good credit score. The odd thing about credit is the banks and lenders like lending to people who've got a lot of credit, as long as they're managing that credit that they already have. So it's good to have open accounts. It's good to have some closed accounts too. The closed accounts meaning you had a car loan or something, you paid it off after a period of time, and then that account was closed. It's good to have all those accounts. It shows that you can operate credit as it's supposed to be used. But you can see from their perspective, they would like me to have 11 to 20 credit accounts, and 21 plus would be excellent, and that would increase my credit score. So they really want you to be borrowing, in a number of different ways. And then my credit inquiries, it's not too bad. It's at the lower end in this case. In this case, that direction is bad. If I had 9 inquiries, that would 5 to 8 or 9 plus, that would impact my credit history. So that's a look into that. You can all do a similar thing. For anyone that's living in the States, you could already be doing this. I would recommend you sign up for Credit Karma, a very useful site to sort of understand how you're doing and how credit card or credit companies will rate you. And as I mentioned earlier, ultimately this this overview tells you whether you've got good chances of approval for whatever you want to buy. So if I were going for a new mortgage at this point, or if I went to the bank and wanted to borrow some money for whatever reason, to start a business or whatever else, they would run my credit history and they would see, yes, here's someone that can afford to pay back that money. They would look at my income, they'd look at the history of my payments, they'd look at my assets, etc., and they'd say, okay, yes, this is the sort of person we would like to lend money to. He's going to pay it back. So that's how that works, and that's why it's important to have pretty good scores. So So there you go. That's what I wanted to show you today. With credit scores. Hopefully that's helped a little bit. I'll be producing another video specifically about credit cards, which credit cards to go for, which ones to avoid, how to get started with that. So I'll be producing another video in the next few days about that, and hopefully you'll find that interesting. But I hope this has been useful and interesting to you. And let me know in the comments below. Please make sure you're subscribed to my channel, and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. All right, thank you very much. Have a good day.